What we are studying right now is the development of head and neck, which is a very important topic in the embryology. This topic is actually more important for people who are doing the bachelor's for the dentistry. Development of head and neck. I just think I should focus something like, okay, so the development of head and neck. So development of head and neck is all dependent over the pharyngeal apparatus. How the pharyngeal apparatus is made and everything, that is what we're going to cover over here. The pharyngeal apparatus consists of pharyngeal arches that are also called the brachial arches. It also has pharyngeal pouches and pharyngeal grooves and a pharyngeal membrane. So the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to draw a diagram to explain you how pharyngeal arches and pharyngeal pouches and everything is situated. And how does it look like? There are six pharyngeal arches. So the first pharyngeal arch will look like this. You should actually take notes. Taking this lecture, it will help a lot. Okay, so this is the first pharyngeal arch. This is the first pharyngeal arch. These two are the second pharyngeal arches. This is how it's visible when there's a cut section. This is how it's visible. So that's why I'm drawing it like this. So this is the second pharyngeal. This was the first pharyngeal arch, while this is the second pharyngeal arch. The third pharyngeal arch, fourth, and fifth. And there's another pharyngeal arch, the sixth pharyngeal arch. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These are the 6 pharyngeal arches. These 6 pharyngeal arches are made up of mesoderm. These are mesodermal in origin. So you can just make an indicator over here that the red color is used for mesoderm. Moving forward, we can see that there are, after the pharyngeal arches, there are the pharyngeal pouches. The pharyngeal pouches are on the inside to these pharyngeal arches. The pharyngeal pouches are on the inside. So how do we make them? So this is how I made it. Now over here, there's this thing like this. This part over here. This part is the pharyngeal pouch. This V-shaped thing is the pharyngeal pouch. So we have made the pharyngeal pouch over here. Now what we're going to do is make the pharyngeal, the pharyngeal pouches. How many pharyngeal pouches do we have? We have 5 pharyngeal pouches, and the 5 pharyngeal pouches that we have are, endodermal in origin. Moving forward, we can see that there's another thing that needs to be drawn over here. That is the pharyngeal clefts. To complete the pharyngeal apparatus, we need to draw another thing, that's the pharyngeal cleft. The pharyngeal cleft is something like this. So you can see how it is, and the black ones are the clefts. The clefts are ectodermal in origin. The clefts are ectodermal in origin. So you can actually mark it over here as well. These are ectodermal in origin, while this part over here is the cleft. See how many clefts are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 clefts are here. 5 clefts, like this, the pairs of the clefts, or it's just one cleft. This is how we can see it. So we can see that there are 5 pharyngeal clefts. Now we can count the pharyngeal pouches. The pouches, the first one is 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 5 pharyngeal pouches and there are 5 pharyngeal clefts. What did we leave? We left this part. This was the mesoderm in origin, and it was the arch. This is pharyngeal arch. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6 pharyngeal arches. Moving forward, okay, just write it down somewhere, but it's not important, you've already known it. So moving forward, we need to know the derivatives of clefts, arches, and pouches. The derivatives of the clefts, the last 4 pharyngeal clefts. Now what we need to know over here is that the last 4 pharyngeal clefts are buried in the second pharyngeal arch. The last 4 pharyngeal clefts are buried in the second pharyngeal arch. So you can write it down that last 4 clefts buried second pharyngeal arch. Okay, about this is the first point that you need to know. Just write it down. Remember it. So there are no so we cannot just discuss the derivatives of this directly, and there are so we can okay. So the next point is that the first pharyngeal cleft is responsible. What is the first? Now the first there are 5 pharyngeal clefts total. So what is the first pharyngeal cleft responsible for? The first pharyngeal cleft is responsible for the formation of 2 things: external auditory meatus, also known as external auditory canal, and the second is the outer covering of the tympanic membrane. So we know that if the question comes about the clefts, like write a short note on the clefts about the pharyngeal cleft, you can say the pharyngeal clefts are 5 in number and they are ectodermal in origin. That means that they are derived from the ectoderm of the trilaminar germ disc. So we can say that, and then we can actually code this whole thing that we just wrote, that the last 4 pharyngeal clefts are buried in the second pharyngeal arch, and that the first pharyngeal cleft is responsible for the formation of the external auditory meatus and the outer covering of the tympanic membrane. Now the next important topic is the derivatives of the pharyngeal pouches. So the derivatives of the pharyngeal pouches, how many pharyngeal pouches do we have? So the human embryo has 5 pairs of pharyngeal pouches, which are the diverticula of the endodermal lining of the gut. What is more important, the question comes on the derivatives of the pharyngeal pouches, which we are discussing over here. So we'll start with the first pharyngeal pouch. We have made these boxes to write them down. It forms a diverticulum. The first pharyngeal pouch forms a diverticulum called the tubotympanic recess, and the proximal part of which develops into an auditory tube. So what is it? So first part will make a tubotympanic recess, and then it will make plus the first thing. The second is the eustachian tube, that is the auditory tube. You can write the eustachian tube if you want, auditory tube. The third is the middle ear cavity that is formed by it. So, and the third is the middle ear cavity. The distal portion of this forms the tympanic cavity or the mastoid antrum, and that the auditory tube. So we can see the middle ear cavity. Now coming to the second pharyngeal pouch. By the second pharyngeal pouch, the palatine tonsils are formed. By the second pharyngeal pouch. Then by the third pharyngeal pouch, what is formed by the third pharyngeal pouch? The derivative of the third pharyngeal pouch is inferior parathyroid gland. We know that there are 4 parathyroid glands in the human body. The 2 are the superior parathyroid glands and 2 the inferior parathyroid glands. So here they are talking that firstly the thymus is made, and then the inferior parathyroid gland is made. And the inferior parathyroid gland, which is called the parathyroid 3. So this is formed by the third pharyngeal pouch. The fourth pharyngeal pouch forms the superior parathyroid gland. That superior parathyroid gland is known as superior parathyroid gland is known as parathyroid 4. So it forms the superior parathyroid and 4 in Roman numbers. Okay. Moving forward to the fifth pharyngeal pouch. What does the fifth pharyngeal pouch forms? It forms the ultimobrachial body, and this ultimobrachial body, which is formed by the fifth pharyngeal pouch, later incorporates into thyroid gland, giving rise to C cells. These C cells, which are also known as parafollicular cells, and what do these C cells or the parafollicular cells do? From our previous knowledge, we can say that these cells do release and produce calcitonin. So this was all for the pharyngeal pouches. So now we're starting the pharyngeal arches. The derivatives of pharyngeal arches are very important. Discussing it, we'll start with the derivatives of pharyngeal arches, and the first point that we should be knowing about it is that the pharyngeal arches are 6 in number. They are 6 in number that we discussed before. 6 pharyngeal arches. And other derivatives, these are the derivatives of the mesoderm. We already know, but there's another thing that the mesoderm, the paraxial and lateral mesoderm. The paraxial and the lateral mesoderm, I'll explain it in another video what the paraxial and the lateral mesoderms are if you don't know already. So the components of the pharyngeal arches. This is the components of a typical pharyngeal arch would be. What are the components of a typical pharyngeal arch? First, there is an aortic arch, a cartilage rod. First, you can discuss what an aortic arch is. An aortic arch is an artery that arises from the truncus arteriosus of the primordial heart, and it comes here to supply the muscles which will be originated from the pharyngeal arches. Then there is a cartilage rod. The cartilage rod are actually the neural crest cells forms the skeleton. These are neural crest cells, and they form the cells come from the neural crest cells, and these form the skeleton and the connective tissue of the arch, of the pharyngeal arches, the skeleton and the connective tissue of the pharyngeal arches. Moving forward, the third is a muscular component. These are the muscles which will arise from the pharyngeal arches, muscular arches, the muscular component, I'm sorry. And then there is a nerve. Okay, about the nerve, the nerve is not derived from the pharyngeal arch. The nerve is actually from the neuroectoderm of the primordial brain and supplies the mucosa and the muscles of the pharyngeal arch. Okay, the nerve isn't directly derived from the pharyngeal arch. Neither is the aortic arch. Okay, so what are the nerves that will be found here? Cranial nerve 7. Firstly, there will be cranial nerve 5 as well. But it will be the mandibular division, or we can write like 5. The mandibular division of the 5th cranial nerve. Cranial nerve 5, 7, 9, and 10. These are the nerves that we'll be discussing here later on. So I can tell you some of the things about it. So the pharyngeal arches appear in the fourth and the 5th weeks of development, and they consist of the mesenchymal tissue derived from the paraxial and the lateral ectoderm. Each pharyngeal arch has its corresponding cranial nerves that we discussed, that 5th, 7th, 9th, and 10th. 4 pharyngeal arches are visible on the surface and are numbered craniocaudally, and the 5th and the 6th pharyngeal arches are small and cannot be seen on the surface. Moving forward to the last drawing that we made, here the last diagram that we made, we can see this is not important. I don't know how to explain it. This fifth pharyngeal arch is completely regressed in human beings, so we'll not be discussing this one. So moving forward to the first, from here, the 5th cranial nerve will be here at the first pharyngeal arch. The 2nd cranial nerve 7, the cranial nerve 9, and 6th and 4th we have the cranial nerve 10. Now we'll talk about the derivatives of the cranial nerves. So the derivatives of the first pharyngeal arch is what we are going to discuss right now. So we have actually written the components over here: the nerve, the muscles, the cartilage rod, and the aortic arch. These are the components which will be the same for every pharyngeal arch. For the first pharyngeal arch, you should know that this pharyngeal arch is also called as the mandibular arch. The nerve that supplies it is, we already know, cranial nerve, the trigeminal nerve, the 5th cranial nerve, and it is cranial nerve 5 and its mandibular division. The muscles that are derived from the pharyngeal arch are the same muscles that are supplied by the 5th cranial nerve's mandibular branch. that we know already, and if you do not know, we'll be doing it again in the head and neck, and you'll know it there. But I'm going to write them down here, but you should learn it, not write this, but it'll be like you're cramming it. But that way you'll understand it again. So the muscles are there are 4 muscles of mastication. You know which? 4 mastication. Medial pterygoid, lateral pterygoid, this temporalis muscle. These are the muscles of mastication, and there are 4 muscles of mastication. Then there's this tensor tympani, tensor villi palatini, mylohyoid muscle, and the anterior belly of digastric muscle. In the muscles that are derived from the second pharyngeal arch, you already know that the nerve that is supplying it is cranial nerve 7, and the muscles that are being supplied, that are derived from here are the stapedius. They are the same muscles that are normally supplied by the 7th cranial nerve. Stapedius, stylohyoid. Okay, another thing, in the examination you'll write the name of the 4 muscles of mastication. You won't be writing just the muscles of mastication. You have to name those muscles. Then there is digastric over here as well, but over here there is the posterior belly of digastric muscle. Then there are the auricles, and then the muscles of the facial expression. You have to name every muscle of the facial expression over here in the examination. Moving forward to the 3rd pharyngeal arch. Okay, the second pharyngeal arch is also known as the hyoid arch. Now moving to the 3rd pharyngeal arch. The 3rd pharyngeal arch was supplied by the cranial nerve 9, which is the glossopharyngeal nerve, and so only one muscle is derived from here, and that is the stylopharyngeus muscle. Now the 4th and the 6th pharyngeal arches are together, so we'll be discussing them. The 10th cranial nerve supplies this part. This is the vagus nerve, and the recurrent laryngeal branch of the vagus nerve supplies it. Okay, the difference is that in the 4th cranial nerve, the 4th arch is the muscles arising from here are supplied by the superior laryngeal branch of the vagus nerve, and over here this recurrent laryngeal branch of the vagus nerve supplies over here. So we do it together because it's the vagus nerve anyway. The muscles that are derived from here are the muscles of larynx, cricothyroid muscle, levator palatini muscle, and the constrictors of pharynx. And for the people who want to distinguish between them, like they're over here, so this is derived from the 4th arch. The muscles of the larynx are derived from the 4th arch. And from here, the muscles from the 6th arch, from the 6th arch, muscles of larynx are derived from the 6th arch, except cricothyroid, which is derived from the 4th arch. And the skeletal muscles of oesophagus are also derived from the 6th arch. Okay, so now the cartilage rod of the 1st pharyngeal arch. It includes maxilla, zygomatic bone, a part of temporal bone, malleus, and incus. It does not include stapes. Moving forward to the aortic arch, it is the maxillary artery. Cartilage rod of the 2nd pharyngeal arch, we have the styloid process over here, we have stapes, we have styloid ligament, the temporal bone, and the lesser horn and upper part plus upper part of hyoid bone. I'd like to show you how this is distributed. This is a rough diagram of the hyoid bone. This part is the lesser horn of the hyoid bone, the greater horn of the hyoid bone. This is the body. So this, the upper part of the body, and the lesser horn is covered. This red part is the part that is formed by the 2nd pharyngeal arch. Now about the aortic arch. The aortic arch of the second arch, that is a hyoid arch, is the stapedial artery. You can remember it by stapes because stapes wasn't in the previous one, the 1st pharyngeal arch, and it is over here, so you can actually remember it by this. Cartilage rod of the 3rd pharyngeal arch. The cartilage rod of the third pharyngeal arch only has the lower, forms the lower part of the body and greater horn of the hyoid bone. How can we make it? Like, I'd like to show it how it's made. So this is how it is made. Okay, with this part, the distribution, I'd like to show you the distribution over here. This is the part which is formed by the third pharyngeal arch. Forward to the cartilages of the fourth and the sixth pharyngeal arches, the cartilage rod. So the cartilage rod of the fourth and the sixth pharyngeal arch is they are the muscles, the cartilages of the larynx. Thyroid cartilage, cricoid cartilage, arytenoid cartilage, corniculate cartilage, and the cuneiform cartilage. What you can know, just for your information, that these cartilages can be divided into two parts, the unpaired ones and the paired ones. The unpaired ones are the thyroid cartilage and the cricoid cartilage. You can actually just mention the names of these cartilages over here. This whole thing I'm just trying to explain you the cartilages of the larynx if you do not know them already. The cartilages of the larynx, or it can be just your revision. So the cartilages of the larynx, thyroid, the unpaired are the thyroid cartilage and the cricoid cartilage, while the paired ones are the cuneiform cartilage, corniculate cartilage, plus the last one is the arytenoid cartilage.